Hello. If you are reading this manual, congratulations on being hired to work at the Grand Kitchen, a restaurant serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The purpose of this manual is to ensure employees and customers are safe from foodborne illness. This will protect not only you, but also our customers and our community. It will also help this restaurant be a successful business and keep you employed. It is important to note that it is everyone's responsibility to ensure food is safe. You should know that approximately 1 in 6 Americans become ill, 128,000 suffer hospitalization, and 3,000 die from foodborne diseases each year. The most common location of foodborne illness is in a restaurant. Furthermore, the cost of a foodborne illness outbreak is very expensive. It costs a lot more than it does to implement a safe food program, such as what is described in this manual. It is important to know that we are regulated by various acts and laws. First, the Clean Air Act of 1963 regulates emissions. This restaurant follows the Clean Air Act and the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. We do this by ensuring proper ventilation in the kitchen and in the eating spaces for the workers and for the customer's health and for anyone in the proximity of the establishment that may receive downwind fumes from the restaurant. We also follow the Clean Water Act. This regulates our water discharge. We will also ensure that we follow regulations for wastewater, such as that from cooking, cleaning, and our sewers. We will properly dispose of greases and fats. Another regulation we follow is the OSHA Standard 29 CFR 1910, Subpart J, regarding sanitation, water supply, and food handling. This restaurant will always follow these standards and be ready for OSHA inspection. Additionally, we follow the FDA Food Code 2017, which was adopted by the state of Illinois Food Code Part 750. Part of this requires food service establishments to be under the operational supervision of a certified food protection manager or certified food service sanitation manager. Additionally, we comply with inspections and remediation plans as necessary with the FDA and the Illinois Food Code. Now, to ensure that we do this, we must follow risk management and communication strategies. All efforts will be made to prevent persons from becoming sick from food consumed in this restaurant. The highest risk factors to food safety in this restaurant are improper storage and holding of cold and hot foods, undercooked foods, foods obtained from unsafe sources, contaminated equipment, and poor employee hygiene and employee health. The control points for these hazards are the temperatures for holding, storing, and cooking foods, safety of the food supply origination sources, sanitization of restaurant equipment and supplies, storage and separation of ready-to-eat versus raw foods, employee hygiene, and employee health. It is very important to remember these. We must keep track and maintain the proper temperatures. We must keep ready-to-eat and raw foods separated. Employees must execute proper hygiene and sanitization, and sick employees must stay home. Preventive measures for these risks include using temperature monitoring systems for our food storage, using thermometers to check our temperatures of our cooked foods, verifying the documents and inspection reports from our food suppliers, ensuring proper food transportation processes, and dedicating separate storage spaces for our ready-to-eat versus not ready-to-eat foods in order to prevent cross-contamination. Also, we will implement strict employee hygiene procedures and we will enforce stay-at-home policy for sick employees. The following best practices will be followed. Routine checks on temperature gauges of refrigerators and freezers, two-person verification on visual check of cooked food internal temperatures, validation of supplier food source documents and inspection reports, validation of food transportation processes, label storage spaces for raw meats versus ready-to-eat foods in refrigerators and freezers, train employees on proper sanitization and self-hygiene, which includes proper hand washing and use of gloves, face masks, and hairnets when appropriate. Post hand wash reminder signs in restrooms, storage area, and kitchen. No bare hand touching of ready-to-eat foods. And enforce company policy for sick employees to stay at home. To support this, we will use visual aids to remind workers on the following best practices. Proper cooking temperature signage will be placed in kitchen cooking areas, see Appendix A. Proper storage temperature signage will be placed outside and inside of refrigerators and freezers, see Appendix B. Labels will be placed in food storage areas to indicate where to place raw foods versus ready-to-eat foods. Proper hand washing procedure signage will be placed in all restrooms, the employee break room, and by all sinks, see Appendix C. Company sick policy for workers to stay home will be posted in the break room and office area. Additionally, verbal and written reminders regarding these best practices will be provided in employee trainings, emails, and in-person meetings. Next, food safety training and certification. This restaurant requires supervisors to be certified as food protection managers. Also, all workers in this restaurant are required to be trained and certified as food handlers in accordance with the Public Act 098-0566, the Food Handling Regulation Enforcement Act of 2013. Did you know that studies show restaurants with food safety certified managers are less likely to experience foodborne illness outbreaks? This is true. This is one of many reasons why we require this. Next, food storage and transportation. This restaurant will obtain transportation procedures from suppliers regarding origination of food source, delivery date, distance traveled, type of transportation vehicle, type of temperature control system in the vehicle, and documentation of temperatures in the food storage compartments of the vehicle. This is critical information to know whether or not foods may be subject to temperatures that can allow for spoilage. This information also provides documentation that can assist in traceback procedures. Food storage in the restaurant will strictly follow the HACCP principles described in the next section. Refrigerator temperature will be set 38 degrees Fahrenheit to allow a buffer between the 41 degrees Fahrenheit critical control limit to account for minor changes in temperature that may occur when opening and closing the refrigerator door. The freezer temperature will also be set to 3 degrees lower than the critical control limit. These safeguards will help prevent any potential for temperatures to be conducive to bacteria growth. Foods will be stored according to the flow of food and with the following requirements. Ready-to-eat foods will not be stored with raw or not ready-to-eat foods. Raw foods will be separated from each other, and different raw foods will not be stored above or below other raw foods in order to prevent contamination due to spillage. Foods will be properly wrapped and or placed within sealed containers and labeled. Next section is the Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point Principles, also known as HACCP. HACCP is proactive, prevention-based program with the goal of consistent, safe food production. It is paramount to ensuring food safety and eliminating foodborne illness. This is vital not only for customer and worker health, but also for business costs and profitability. HACCP focuses on preventing hazards that cause foodborne illness, and it does this by employing 7 key principles. In addition to these 7 principles, this restaurant will first require all employees to obtain state-approved food handler trainings, and restaurant managers and supervisors will be required to obtain state-approved food protection manager certification. Food menu items will be organized and prepared according to the flow of food. Grouping will be based on breakfast, lunch, and dinner menus. Note, these are separate non-overlapping time periods, and each is available only during that time period of the day. And foods are organized by stored by type, such as dairy, grain, meat, and storage needs, and raw versus ready-to-eat foods. Principle 1 of the HACCP process is to conduct a hazard analysis. This is the most important step and is a multi-step. We have to identify biological, chemical, and physical agents that have the potential to cause illness or injury. We have to evaluate and control for these. This restaurant will look for these in our sources of food, transportation, our storage processes, as well as any potential for cross-contamination in the kitchen during food preparation and cooking processes. This will ensure hazards are identified and prevented from farm to table. Principle 2 is to determine critical control points. Control measures will be applied to all identified hazards. This will include temperature monitoring, tracking of order dates, picked dates, package dates, shipping dates, and expiration dates. Control measures will also include cooking foods to the proper temperatures and having designated preparation and storage areas for each type and group of food. Principle 3 is to establish critical control limits. The restaurant will determine what the proper temperatures are for storage and cooking and preparing procedures for each food. Principle 4 is to establish monitoring procedures. This restaurant's food safety plan requires workers to use critical control checklists daily, which contain the date, time, product, temperature, date the product was received, expiration, and other information pertaining to which could lead to potential identifiable hazards and control limits. All foods will be checked daily to ensure proper accountability and accurate information. If a food does not meet any of its requirements based on these critical control limits, then the worker will mark the deviation and provide details of the product and its deviation. Principle 5 is to establish corrective actions. The restaurant has corrective actions specific to various types of control limit deviations. When unacceptable deviations are noted during monitoring procedures, corrective actions must be implemented accordingly. The noted deviations will be reviewed by a supervisor daily who will determine if the deviation warrants discarding of the food or if the food can be saved. The food will not be used until the supervisor has evaluated the deviation and determined the proper course of action. Principle 6 is to establish a record-keeping system. The restaurant uses checklists, deviations, and decisions, which must be documented. Principle 7 is to establish a verification process. This restaurant's HACCP will be validated quarterly. However, more frequent validations may occur as incidents occur and per management's judgment. Next section, food safety, documentation, and record keeping. The restaurant will maintain a paper binder and electronic files on the following: employee and supervisor food handling and sanitization trainings, purchases and expenditures, HACCP procedures, HACCP identified hazards, HACCP critical control point checklist, deviations, decisions, and corrective actions, HACCP quarterly validations, and customer complaints and restaurant responses. It is very important to acknowledge customer complaints related to foodborne illness and handle those with the utmost care. Food source traceback and timelines will be assessed to validate the legitimacy of a customer complaint. A customer-first approach will be employed, and the restaurant will rectify the situation and ensure the problem does not happen again in the event it is the restaurant's fault and was preventable. Here we have in our appendices examples of our signage regarding cooking times and temperatures, refrigeration temperature guide, and freezing for storage of our foods, and hand washing signage for our employees. Thank you.